So good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to our panel on building a career in the social services sector, passion, practicality, or both. This panel itself is a subset of the Creative Narratives for Change Festival 2022, a hub for community builders and change makers to gather and learn from one another. So this itself is the last session for this week, and I was thinking of ending it with a bang. And we have many more amazing sessions lined up next Saturday as well. So please stay tuned for that. Now, our panel today consists of some really talented and amazing young career builders in their socially oriented organizations and change makers as well in their own right. We are grateful that they have taken the time to come and join us and enlighten us on this wonderful Saturday afternoon. So firstly, thank you to everyone who has been on time. Some admin instructions for you as well. Please just keep your videos switched on and microphones switched off throughout the session. I'm sure our panelists here would also want to speak to a whole gallery of smiling, happy faces rather than just seeing some blank screens. So our session itself will be recorded and available for viewing on YouTube after the event. If you would like to ask a question, please feel free to type it in the chat box, or you can use the raise hand function located at the bottom right of your Zoom screen. So what I will do is I will endeavor to address it to our panel when I can. Now on to introductions. My name is Raj. I will be your moderator for this panel. And joining us today, we have Mick, firstly. So Mick is Mick is our partnerships executive at Continentalist, an award-winning studio driving social change and bridging research and the public in Asia through data stories. Now, he graduated in 2020 with a BA, a bachelor's in law from Oxford University. We have Hafiza as well. So Hafiza designs and operates open-ended, child-led programs at Playum, an independent charity with a strong social mission to champion children of all backgrounds and abilities to be their best, thriving self. She's an architecture diploma graduate with experience in non-profit organizations like the Singapore Kindness Movement and Participate in Design. Gayatri, our other panelist, actually stumbled into the social service sector. Yes, definitely. Yeah, keep your reactions coming in. Wonderful. I see Brendan and Mick as well with your reactions. So Gayatri stumbled into the social service sector while working with youths in her role as a facilitator for camps. She is now working with children in brave feats, supporting their growth emotionally, mentally, and academically. And she strongly believes in being the person she needed when she faced her own struggles. So we can ask her about that as well. And Alif is an associate in Studio Dojo. In his work, he strongly believes and works towards building empathy for ourselves and others, and the capacity to design healthier spaces around us. It has actually led him to guide creatives in a year-long journey of introspective self-work and supporting team training on cultivating effective communication. So as you can see, we have a whole host and bunch of wonderful panelists, individuals, stories, and perspectives for our panels today. So now I will start with our first question that we have received. Now, there are often these remarks that I have personally come across about working in the social services sector. They have either called it soul cell services sector, or even social, where you believe that you've given your all and are just quite exhausted, given the tremendous mental, emotional, and even spiritual fatigue that people face. So the question is for everyone: what made you decide to tackle this area of social service? How did you get into this field, and why do you stay in this field? Yes. So any one of you can just unmute yourselves and proceed to speak. Yes. Maybe Mick? Yes.
Hi. Yeah, so I just thought to maybe introduce myself. I know that was a brief introduction, but I just thought it was important to clarify, that I'm currently working at Continentalist, which is a data visualization studio, and it may not fit your kind of conventional understanding of what counts as social sector. And I just want to say that because maybe the concerns about the social sector may not fully apply. So I don't want to speak on behalf of people for whom I don't have the relevant experience or expertise. I mean, if you're curious about like the company that I'm currently working at, I'll send a link to the chat that you can check out. And yeah, if you see what we do, it's a bit more almost like tech startup. It's a social enterprise, but it's still a company. So it's not maybe subject to I don't know, certain maybe government regulations or procurement processes or other kind of pressures and forces that other aspects of the social sector are. Yeah, that being said, as to why I am here, I was kind of motivated to join for, I think, two main reasons. So I studied law at university, but even before and beyond law, I've always been, I think, very drawn to advocacy on issues, and not just interested. I think interest is too light a word, but I guess I care greatly about social justice, and that comes in part due to personal experience as an LGBT person and feeling firsthand a lot of unjust discrimination in this place. And I think I realized over the years that law has its limits. I realized that advocacy is a lot broader. And so I grew interested in finding alternative ways to persuade people aside from just arguing, because honestly, I have not succeeded in convincing anyone purely through arguments, nor have I actually witnessed any successful conversion through arguments. I think outside of maybe the courtroom, very few people are actually convinced by arguments, and it's usually a mix of other things like life experience and the kind of more emotional aspects of persuasion. So that's why I kind of wanted to explore what Continentalist does, which is data storytelling, which aims at kind of having that effective aspect of storytelling emotionally, as well as combining with the data, like numbers, statistics. And then I guess the second part to that was I'm more broadly interested in, how do I put it, facts and taking meaningful action based on established facts. And so I thought exploring the world of like data and data-driven kind of investigations and policy making could be quite interesting. And so like, yeah, that's kind of why I got into it in the first place. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Maybe for the rest of our panelists as well, would any of you want to take that?
Maybe I can introduce myself.
Yes.
I'm Hafiza. So maybe before I share with you like where I work, maybe I'll share with you the journey of how I got to where I am. So a month after I graduated from poly, I studied architecture. I made the decision to put my future education on hold to care for my mother. So she's a person with epilepsy, and she was diagnosed with cancer during that time. So I took my hands is shaking because every time I talk about that, yeah, past memories. Okay, so so during that period in my life, it shifted my focus to find meaningful work, whatever it was. So I guess I was deciding between like, okay, do I pursue work in architecture, or should I look into something where I can have more meaning that I can actually see. And also during that time, I realized that life is too short. So so let's just try social sector. Let's see how it goes. And thankfully, my mom recovered. And because of that also, sorry, and yes, she's fine, everyone's fine. Yes, life is too short. And because of that, I looked at, okay, so what are my strengths? And I knew that I had And I knew that I had a background in design, so that's why I tried to apply to Singapore Kindness Movement. I was like, okay, I am new to this field. Who is the kindest person around? So like top of my head, okay, Singapore Kindness Movement. Let's see, are they applying? So I went down, I scrolled. Oh, okay, they were looking for a marketing person to cover for someone who was on maternity leave, and yeah. Thank God, I got accepted. And what I did there was that I managed their digital marketing strategies and campaigns, and it was a good learning ground as well. And I think one thing that I was really appreciative and I feel very lucky of is because working at Singapore Kindness Movement, it also opened me up to like all the different ground up movements, and also knowing that there are so many amazing people around. And it was also a good starting point for me to understand that, okay, so there are also many different causes that I can go for. So it was a good stepping ground, and also a place where I met incredible people, people such as like people from Playful Kids. It's a ground up movement that organizes pop-up adventure playgrounds and anywhere. So that was how I was introduced to like, oh, you can actually have a ground up movement about play, about children. So I was interested in that, but I was like, okay, they weren't exactly hiring. They were just volunteer run, community based. So okay, it was at the back of my mind. Then I met Participate in Design. So Participate in Design is actually an organization, also a non-profit that designs for community-owned spaces and solutions. So I eventually became a volunteer with them, and I actually conducted on-the-ground research, community engagement, and workshops with them. And through one of the workshops, that's how I met Playum. So this is where I am right now. I was introduced to Playum back when it was still a center at Gilman Barracks, and I was mind blown at how such a space existed. So I fell in love with the space, like literally at first sight, because I felt that it was a safe space, and not only for just children, but I realized that in building a safe space, it also makes adults also feel safe in it. And I think that was one of the things that that opened my heart to Playum. Yeah. So yes. So coming back, so when I was working with Playum, I really wanted in, because it had something to do with play. It's a safe space. It's a space where it's a safe space to fail actually. So but what do I do? I have a diploma in architecture. I had experience in marketing. I thankfully just applied and just like, oh, are you hiring anything? And they were actually hiring for a lead person to run the center. I had no experience running an exhibition space, but I YOLO'd. I I basically just tried my best and learned along the way. I think to this day I am very grateful to have great mentors, great people to work with. And yeah, I guess in that way also it helps because I realized that there were also like certain privileges that I had, as for example, like I could volunteer because I didn't need a part-time job, for example. That's how I met like incredible people from Playful Kids, Participate in Design, and yeah, so I guess just as like an advice to someone who is also starting out, it is okay if it's taking a while for you to figure out like where you need to go, because sometimes you need a part-time job, so that's why you might not be in certain areas. For example, sometimes slots are full for certain organizations that you really want to work with. Try to just search around. Yeah, things will pop out and you'll meet like-minded people. And yeah, so I mean, coming back to like the soul crushing, or maybe you can say like exhaustion or burnout, right? So I mean, I was an introvert. I'm still an introvert. So when I was tasked to run a center, I did my very best for like the months that I was in, and I think I was giving a lot. and not taking care of myself. And I think that resulted in a burnout, because I was meeting people, I was doing my best in like something that I had no experience in. And I guess it was also something where there was a lot of insecurities as well. So I think an advice also is to take care of yourself. I'm glad that I found yoga during that time. I realized that I was giving myself a lot in terms of my energy, and I needed something to bring in my energy again. So yes, we have come full circle. It started off with like even the way I presented this, I realized it was like chaos, and now I guess it's a place where I am much more calmer. And yeah, okay, that's
Thank
me.
you so much for that. I think it's such a beautiful sharing. I mean, from both Mick and Hafiza thus far, a lot of the ideas that I gained from like both of your sharings is this idea of advocacy, of exploring even when, you know, certain limitations come our way, certain barriers that don't seem to fit in with like what we would have envisioned or visualized for us to do at a particular juncture in our life. And then suddenly, somehow or other, we are guided to different opportunities that we are able to grasp. And then that brings us to where we are really meant to be. So I think this is definitely one. Wow, I'm actually getting goosebumps. Okay, like I feel like this is a really very important lesson for our audience as well, who's here today. For the social services sector itself, like I mean, as much as it appears to be so, there are a lot of different opportunities that are available there. But as Hafiza mentioned very rightly, you have to actually go and find some of it. So perhaps even just a simple Google search on like things that you feel you might want to resonate with, or like you want to volunteer with, for example, is actually a very good way of trying to just explore your interests and help out temporarily, and then seeing where you go. And I really am so proud of you, Hafiza, and really admire the fact that you found your spark in that moment where you went to play them, and then you say that I fell in love with it right here. I think that itself is really quite an inspiration for us. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Brendan, for your messages. In fact, all of you are strongly welcome to send in your comments or questions in the chat box as we have. So on that wonderful note as well, maybe Gayatri and Alif can also share a bit more about yourself and your journey in the social services sector thus far. Yep. Any one of you? Okay, Gayatri, yes.
Okay, yeah. I think I love the narratives of Mick and Hafiza, because for me, I feel like whatever they were struggling with, whatever as they were as they went through the journey of their lives, you know, whatever struggles they all had, they have brought it into the work that they do, and they want to like create a better world where, you know, these issues that they have faced, that others around them, others further down the line, they don't have to face these issues, or they can get the help that they need when, if they ever do face these issues. So for me, I think like I said, like from your introduction, that I stumbled into the social services sector. Initially, when I was first called to this panel, they were like, "Oh yeah, please talk to us about your experience with the social service sector." And I'm like, I didn't even know I was in the social service sector. So it was a real, it was a revelation for me. And I'm thankful for this experience, because it kind of like made me like reassess where I am, what I'm doing, and how much value it's actually giving back, and how much however I needed to be in my life, I needed to be there in my life. Hopefully I am that person today for the children that I work with. I came from a background where my mom's a single parent, and you know, I saw a lot of the struggles that she had to face, and I myself, as a child from a single parent family, faced a lot of struggles along the way. So at a point of time when I thought I didn't have much support, I think a lot of times my teachers, there was always a teacher who stood there, you know, and kind of like saw something in me that I never saw in myself. Yeah, and that's how I think I definitely got into the education sector. So from where I started out to now where I am, it has been a really long journey, but it definitely started out because of the fact that there was a teacher who saw something in me and who made me believe in myself. And I am that person today, and I hope to bring the change that I want to see in the world to the kids that I'm working with. Though it's a struggle, it's a daily struggle. I won't say it's a soul sucking thing. It's more of like emotionally, mentally, and physically. Sometimes it can get very overwhelming because you're not dealing with one child. It's many of them, and there are many lives, and there are many quirks, and you just have to like sit with it sometimes, and you know breathe it out, because sometimes when they do something, the first thing that I do is I'll just stop there and I'm like, okay, what do we do right now? Because I can't react, I have to respond. And always, remembering that I have a choice. I do have a choice um, to change how I'm going to respond to what's happening here, and it's going to, hopefully, I don't know, get the kids to feel like they are in a. Because what Brave Feet does is we always have advocated for a safe space, and that's what we hope to bring about for the children when they come through our doors. So therefore, when you are an adult and you are the ones who are taking care of the child, and something happens, a lot of times it's very easy to just snap, in a moment, and that's when you just like collect yourself and just like breathe in and be like, okay, I got a response. So how do I respond to this child so that I don't scar them? And yeah, that has been a daily battle, and I'm glad to be in this line, because it has pushed the threshold that I thought I have for certain things. They have constantly challenged it on a daily basis, and I think I learn more about myself through them and from them. Yeah, and it's been a gift. It really has been a gift. Yeah, with this journey and how far I've come. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Gayatri. I think it's really, yeah. Charlotte is giving you a round of applause. Thank you for that, Charlotte. Yeah, I think personally for me, like, there are two things that I find really intriguing, and I want to explore as well in our panel today. One is about the fact that you realize that you were called for a social services sector panel discussion, but you didn't realize that you are in the social services sector, aka we kind of actually, I mean, most of us here have labels or an idea of what the social services sector is, and therefore we like to classify certain actions or jobs or skills as social services versus non-social services. And I think that itself, I mean, as in for most of us, kind of becomes the impediment or barrier between why we might not want to explore, because for us, we already have an idea that it should only appear this way. So I'm here, I mean, our panel is here today to challenge that notion itself with our whole depth of experiences and skills and what they are doing today, to show you that the social services sector need not necessarily merely be what we have come to believe or conform to, like the ideas, but really more so about the different opportunities available to do good with the skills, the opportunities, the knowledge and experiences that we currently have. And it's never ever about a top-down approach where we are on the higher ground and going down, but really it is about co-creating that opportunities of engagement together, co-sharing those wonderful, beautiful, healthy spaces, as Hafiza and Gayatri have mentioned earlier as well, with our stakeholders, with our community that we are engaged with. So one was definitely that notion of social services sector. And I think the second thing that really also got to me is the value of teachers, the value of how how we are encouraged and guided to be. So how we function as people is really what carries on with them and also sits in their subconscious per se, and helps them to face certain situations in life. So that's definitely something I want to explore as well. Maybe to fine tune a bit more on this particular notion, I feel that It's about how we as adults, especially in this pandemic, especially when mental health has been brought to the forefront and we are dealing with so many changes and all per se, how do we ensure that we are able to, as Mick pointed very nicely, tie in with Viktor Frankl's quote on how do we engage and get our human agency and power to be able to respond well. So these are some ideas that we'll hopefully be able to share in our time here. It's already 4:30. We have 1 hour of exciting things to go on. Maybe now, Alif, just about yourself and so.
Sure. Hi everybody. My name is Alif. I think when Gayatri talked about how she fumbled or stumbled into her job, right, it really resonated with me just because I think I was that story of having graduated, but then not knowing what exactly or where I wanted to go. So I studied sociology, and the two things that I knew about leaving uni was that I was interested in people and I was interested in systems, but I didn't really have a job in mind, or I didn't really know what form that could take on. So I stumbled into this space because it really all began with like a coffee conversation with my current boss and learning more about the space, and then the interest grew, and then that grew into a job offer to where I am right now. So I am an associate at Studio Dojo, and what Studio Dojo does is we have training, we have coaching, and we do advisory work as well. So the group that we're working with is slightly different, is more so adults or like in the working world, and how do you develop them like vertically and horizontally as well. So I think for me, adults or like the working sector is always very interesting because it's okay, the way that I say it, once you're out of schooling, you're expected to know and be able to have it all together. And then, you live your adult lives and having the answers, and, you're supposed to fend for yourself. And then once you're older, then the society takes care of you again. So I've always been curious. And also because I was entering the working world, I've been curious, what exactly are the supports that we need and that we can actually provide for these individuals. So when Raj was talking about, like the agency and how do you empower these people to be able to make choices for themselves. So we spend a lot of our time working like 5 out of 7 days. And a lot of us, or a lot of people that I observe, are wanting to just survive. So the question I had is, what if, what are the support structures that we can have to have people to thrive at workplaces instead of merely just surviving? So I think I got into the social oriented or social sector space really more with questions rather than answers. Like, it was a chance for me to just explore what are the possibilities out there rather than being able to say, hey, this is what I can provide for these people. But along the way, like we're working with them, whether it's through training or coaching, it's been really nice to see people shift through whatever issues or struggles that they came with, and just being able to see the choice and the possibilities that they have. Yeah, so I think that is my quick journey into the social oriented space, social sector space. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Alif. I think, Charlotte is applauding again. I mean, feel free to also react with the react button if you want to. That way I can see everyone's response as well. So I think, coming back to that, I think that is definitely important as well. So I'm really glad that you are candid about coming into the sector with questions rather than answers. I think it's a very important step because, again, the current notions is that we have to get into somewhere with all of the knowledge and all intact already, and we often kind of assume that the social services, like most sectors, may not be as forgiving per se for people who just come in. And in fact, it ties on to my next question that I want to ask all of you as well. What is one piece of practical advice that you would give to everyone or anyone who is starting out in this journey? Yeah. So maybe just, feel free to unmute yourselves and answer accordingly. So maybe, okay, so while you are thinking of the answers as well, I'll just elaborate a bit more about my own take from Alif's sharings. And in fact, I welcome our audience as well to give your hot takes on this issue in the chat box. So I feel when we come in with questions rather than answers, there's definitely a lot more room and zest to explore and see what are the kind of ground challenges or operational challenges that are happening. So again, this is tied to how you as the audience, if you want to venture into the social services sector, you can utilize like volunteering opportunities or even an internship, or some remote work with an organization if you feel so, as a way of learning deeper about those issues at the ground. And one good thing about the social services sector is that you learn by, I would say, blooming or clustering, in the sense that a lot of issues are kind of interconnected. In fact, Alif himself, Studio Dojo, correct me if I'm wrong, like you work on the intersection of 4 different pillars. Correct? Yes, correct, exactly. So
Yes.
that itself, that is an opportunity to see how different issues kind of fit and sit by each other and yet influence each other. And I mean, most of us are kind of trained in that interdisciplinary manner as well, to be able to see things. So like how Hafiza is a student of architecture but had experience in marketing, then she was able to bring it, and then slowly you'll find your pace. So perhaps that is something a bit more lucid, a bit more clearer for our audience as well to just take away now sharing from today. So coming back to our practical advice. Yes, dear panelists.
I don't have like, oh, Aleph, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Nurul,
Okay.
for summarizing. But yes, yeah, anyone?
I feel like this will be the most practical thing I say all day. So, and this is really not for people who, it's for everybody rather than just people who are considering the social sector. I think it's to have a conversation with yourself on what significance or weight do you put to the idea of a job or work in your life. And I say this because I think there's a growing narrative, or at least within our generation, that you should find passion in your job, and that if you're passionate about it, then you're happy, and then that is like the ideal goal. And that's one way to look at it, and that's valid. I also know a lot of people who see jobs as a mean to a greater end, so to another end, meaning like jobs are just a way for them to financially fund to do what they enjoy, like on the weekends. And that's a valid way to look at it as well. So I think it's to have an honest conversation with yourself, like even where you are in life and like the commitments that you hold, what value or what significance is having a job to you. And I think knowing that actually would help in like choosing your job on whether passion is important for you or whether at where you are being financially supported is important for you. Yeah, that's my take.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, I'm a man and I can't really multitask. So while I was typing that chat box, that answer in the chat box, I was hearing you fully. So thank you for that, Alif. Anyone else wants to add on to that?
I agree with Alif, especially in the whole self-reflection, and on top of self-reflection, it is also about talking to people, having conversations. You might not know what doors open up for you as well. And sometimes you might think that, social sectors look this way. But then as soon as you realize that, okay, this is actually a different path, and then like it might lead you to different pathways as well. And then again, you have to self-reflect again, like, okay, so where am I now? What's important to me? Priorities change. It doesn't have to be the same job all the way through. And you meet new people, you meet new experiences, and yeah, it's about self-reflection and talking to people, as many people as you can.
Thank you for that. I think that's as in, would any of you want to contribute to that as well? Or I can. Yeah.
You want to go first?
Sure, but what I have is maybe a bit long, so forewarning. I guess I always feel very awkward giving advice, right? Because I think there's always some implicit assumption that you know more, and like I definitely don't. But this is something that I've been thinking about very actively for a very long time, and so I just thought to share some reading. So I just typed all this out while everyone was speaking, and like these are just some like books that I've read and some things that I've drawn from it. So I'll just briefly explain. Those are names of books. So like from the book Sapiens and this awesome collection of anthropological studies in Singapore of people from all walks of life called Hard at Work. I actually think a lot of you here might have heard of it. I think I realized that for most of human history, like 99% for the whole time humans have been alive, kind of careers and occupations haven't really been a thing. Like we kind of lived in much more like smaller settlements, and you had maybe a job in the sense of a task, but in terms of where meaning derived from is typically from your relationships with people. And just because some people didn't have a job or career in the past, I think it'll be strange to say that the vast majority of humanity therefore had meaningless lives. I mean, that's just not true. And from Hard at Work, you also see that for a lot of people, going back to Olive's point, a job really, the primary function of a job is to support a livelihood. And it's quite amazing that across all the diverse walks of life, the thing that everyone says brings them the most fulfillment is how they connect to other people. So that could be their own colleagues, or it could be like their clients and their customers. And I just thought it was really amazing because it goes to show that no matter how, I guess, our society changes and evolves, our fundamental human nature is one that is very interdependent. And that's what brings most people fulfillment. From the books like So Good They Can't Ignore You and this organization and movement called like 80,000 Hours, which I highly recommend checking out. It emphasizes that, a lot of research about what makes a job fulfilling actually boils down to features of a job that is much more role agnostic than we might think. So just a few of them might be autonomy, right? Your independence to complete your own task, completion, your ability to see a project through, variety, feedback, right? So these are just a few features, but you'll notice that you can find this in almost every sector and any job. And so that should encourage like you to be more open-minded as to the exact nature of the job or task that you might end up liking and doing. And then also from 80,000 hours, I picked up the sense that you prioritizing fit, like your personal fit is quite important above like a very abstract kind of, am I doing good? Because in the day-to-day, what you actually do for your tasks affects you more than the abstract mission. But it's also very hard to know in advance what actually fits you, which is why there's no shortcut but to experiment, which goes back to what I think my other panelist was saying, that don't be afraid of realizing that things take longer to figure out, because you just need to go through many, many different experiences that you didn't even plan for to figure out what works best. And then, sorry, this is getting a bit long, but then the next book that I read was Algorithms to Live By, which took kind of a mathematical statistical approach to certain things. And it answers the question of when do you stop experimenting, right? Because I guess not sure if you should experiment all your life, because then you would just not stick to anything. And this one was quite interesting because it gave the paradigm of like exploring and exploiting. So there's a certain window in which you explore multiple options, and then that window closes, and then you choose what was the best out of those that you have explored, and then just choose that and exploit in the sense of like focusing on that and just deepening in that path. And yeah, also to play the unknowns. So like mathematically speaking, when there are many, many options and a lot of them unknown, it's better to just play the unknowns until one option is clearly kind of giving you higher returns. So I guess in the context of like a job or something, unless like this job is like, wow, it's like hitting above the mark for you for every aspect that's important to you, if that's actually not clear, then just keep playing the unknowns. And like for me, as someone who struggles with this, I felt that gave me courage to try. It gave me courage to face unknowns and uncertainty, because it kind of works out in the end. And just lastly, two other books I recommend. One is called Doing Good Better, deconstructs what good actually means. And I think this is something I think more people need to do, critically examine what good means. I think, for example, just because someone is working in the organization that's structured as a nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean that they are doing therefore more good than someone who's working in a company, right? These are just vehicles And yeah, same thing for sector or for purpose. It's very hard to say. But one thing is definitely doing more good than the other. And yeah, this book basically kind of deconstructs that, right? You can really find good work, meaningful work in all kinds of sectors and all kinds of jobs. And yeah, the last book is to like deconstruct what passion actually means, because I think the word passion just gets associated with so many things. It could mean like an interest, a curiosity, conviction, values, strong emotions and feelings. And if you realize, if you start to unpack it, it doesn't really make sense to decide based on passion if you don't even know what passion means, right? So yeah, those are some of the readings that I've been doing recently. And I thought they were very helpful for my own navigation. And like I would encourage everyone to check it out. So yeah, I didn't give any advice other than that. But yeah.
Thank you, Mick, for that. Thank you, Mick, for that question, for that response. I think you've also kind of helped answer the first part of Brendan's question that has just come in. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brendan. In terms of like, do people understand this sector enough to want to join? So perhaps just a quick question for everyone. In your time with your different organizations, what do you think has changed, positively or not? And what do you think needs to be done more in the social service sector, or at least within the community or with the community or stakeholders that you are working with? Yeah. So maybe that question I can pose to Alif first. Yeah.
I think something that I've observed in the short time that I'm in this design space is that the growing interest towards design just beyond the design community itself. So when we started out, it's also wondering who is the audience that we hold, right? And we, through our workshops and all, we initially targeted, okay, the designers and how to upskill them. But it was interesting also to realize that, there are individuals from the education sector, from the finance sector that are interested in the principles of design or design thinking. And, just to see the relevance and how it's interesting to see how design can look like in a role in all these different sectors. So again, it goes back to the idea of intersectionality of if we bring design into a space that is like finance, or in a space like engineering, what could that look like as well? Yeah, that's my take on it.
Thank you so much. Maybe Hafiza at this point. Yes.
Could you repeat the question again?
Okay, so basically it's in, what do you think can be done more in the social services sector currently, that would either get people to join in or understand it better, or help mitigate a particular gap or need that you see in the stakeholders that you are currently working with? Yeah.
Okay, so from my experience with Playum, I realized it is something where so Playum advocates for children's rights, and we also see value in children's voices. So one of the things is that we realize children's voices are not being heard, and it is something where it is not taken seriously in most cases as well. So usually you would yeah, sure, I'll listen to you later, or like, oh yeah, I hear you, but so in a lot of case, for example, where we are, we tend to dismiss voices from marginalized backgrounds, or even for example, in my case, children, right? So one way is we have been trying to work with changing the mindsets of adults. And I guess rather than just only working with the children and helping their social emotional skills, we also look at how we can also train teachers, train educators, and basically not just be in our like in the circles and stakeholders that we know of, but see how else we can also expand. I think it's similar to what Alif was talking about, and it's how we can have that interdisciplinariness of it all.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think, I mean, just quickly bringing it into the topic of youths itself that you just mentioned. Maybe this question can be for both Hafiza and Gayatri to look at. What is your experience dealing with the youths of today? So maybe just I can just rephrase my question a bit better. How do you see the youths of today, and what are some things that you have learned from them that you would really like our audience to also take away from their session today? So perhaps just your perspectives.
For me, it's children are actually very bright, and right now they are very woke as well. So in a lot of cases, you would be very surprised by the things that they know, and by the ideas that they have. So when you actually meet a child, usually we tell our facilitators and also other adults that don't see yourself as the teacher, or see yourself as the learner as well. So then that's when you break down those walls of having a person trying to teach someone and having to learn something together. So in a lot of cases, when we meet with children, they might be surprised that, oh, I don't have instructions right now. And that's when they expand more as well, because you ask them questions, and they feel validated, that their ideas are also being heard of and their thoughts are being respected. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Brendan, glad to see you have emo kids as well that you are dealing with, who are questioning during class or circle time. So I guess this particular sharing will be quite useful for you. Gayatri, please.
Yes. Okay. I think what I've seen a lot with the kids, that now is there's a curiosity, where I feel that maybe during my generation, when my generation, I was in the education, I was learning. It was more of like, whatever the teacher tells me, I'll learn. Beyond that, I'm just like, maybe I'll read up on it, and then after that I'll be like, "Oh, okay, cool, I'm done." That kind of thing. And whereas the kids today, they have so much of technology or appliances that that are made available to them. So they are able to, when they want, they get curious about something, they quickly go and just like search up on it and find out about it. And we have actually encouraged them actually to be more curious about things. And even sometimes I've had to handle conversations I thought I never have to talk about this with kids, and having to be very objective about it and telling them, okay, this is it, and this is why. Sometimes it's also about telling them, that these are the boundaries within which you can talk about it. If someone is comfortable with it, then you continue the conversation. And then I'll go on to the part where I'm not comfortable about it. So can we end this conversation here? And then that whole educating them on the fact that curiosity is a good thing, and you are welcome to it, but then also you have to understand that sometimes there are certain how do I say this, you don't need to put yourself in a box just because you want to know more about something, and you feel like, okay, there's a limitation to it, but know that there's a discipline, even when you learn about something, that there are certain things that are right and certain things that are wrong. And them trying to figure out their right and wrong is what I've been able to witness along together with their curiosity, the journey with curiosity. So it has been great. At the same time, it has been terrifying, because some kids, they are like, oh, how about if I do this? And then you're like, oh my god, no. And yeah, there's always this conversation that the teachers we have at Breakfast, we always will think back like, did we ever do this when we were at this age? And no, the answer is definitely a no. If you're asking that question, means it's probably a no. And I think it's great to be where I am, the sector that I'm in, and the job that I'm doing, to be able to see how far we have come, and also to affect the change that I want to continue to see. And actually, I want to tie it back to, I believe there's a question that Brandon did ask. I just want to go back to it. Wait, hold on.
He asked about people knowing, like, do they know enough or understand enough to join the sector? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I feel that I didn't know anything about the sector. All that I was holding on to is the fact that I wanted to make a change. And for a long time, with the job that I was doing, I felt like I couldn't do it. I didn't have the power. I didn't have the choice. And after I broke out of it, after I just took my blinders off because I had been working the job for a very long time, and I realized that actually no, I can do things. It doesn't mean that I do something and it's like skyrockets, and the change is so major. No, but I can do like small changes along the way, and it build up and build up and it'll build up and build up, and eventually you accumulate that knowledge, and you can actually make a more impactful change gradually rather than immediately. And having to learn that lesson, it taught me a lot of patience, because the person that I was when I first started out in the education sector was someone who was a lot more impatient. Like, there's always the battle of, like, the inner battle of, like, what am I not doing? Why am I not seeing the results that I want to see? Why am I not seeing the change that I want to see? And it took a lot of change of perspective, and to see that, like, in order to create the change, the first thing I had to do is be patient with myself. Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
Thank you so much for that. I think some of the points that really speak to me right now is the fact that you mentioned very succinctly and correctly that it's not about changing everything at one go. It's about gradual, consistent changes that come along the way. I think in terms of those who are curious about the social services sector, this itself is quite important. Many of us, again, are probably under the mindset that it will be a complete overhaul, and therefore it might impact our livelihood or like our income, where it's coming from, etc. These are valid and real concerns, and I think you've answered it quite early. Quite early, sorry. You've answered it quite well. That it's actually really a lot about finding that small little paces, finding your own ground and exploring opportunities meaningfully, and also about the fact that even though it's going to take I wouldn't say take a lot of out of you. It's more of it is going to transform you, but at the same time, it is something that allows you to truly utilize your own skills and knowledge that you gather along the way and bring it to where you are meant to be. So I mean, I see our panelists today and they're shining where they are. But what we probably are not noticing is the kind of depth and their journey that they have gone through, the kind of obstacles, the kind of experiences that they've had. And I mean, I would want to reflect that to our audience as well. It really matters how the journey is. So keep learning, keep exploring, and volunteer, I guess, with different causes that you would feel that attraction to. And if you really want, I mean, in time to come, within the social services sector, opportunities just come one after the other. One good turn really deserves another, and it works so well. And I mean, for me personally as well, why I kind of tune a lot with this is because in my own journey within the social services sector, I've realized that you can actually go on and you will be full of energy when you are really working for the cause that you are connected with. Somehow or other, you can even skip meals or so. Not that it's healthy or recommended, but basically that drive, that thirst to want to do better, to want to work with your stakeholders is something that can give you a lot of amazing energy and drive and fulfillment within. And especially so when you start to see things fall in place, when you start to see opportunities come by, the recognition, that opportunity to learn, explore, and so. And I mean, bringing it back to one of our main concerns of this particular panel is how do we monetize our passion? How do we synergize this passion, this drive in us to want to do good, along with being able to earn well, being able to fulfill our own material needs. So maybe our panel itself, any of you can just unmute and address us on that. How do we ensure that we don't just jump in head first and then not have that kind of security per se? So I think a lot of our audience shares that concern as well. So maybe Hafiza, since you're unmuted, yeah, you can
Yes.
answer that.
Okay. So I think while coming into the social sector, or in my case, a charity, right, one of the biggest challenges is, of course, funding. And if you are in a smaller charity, you might not get as big of a funding. Like, it can be a challenge for the organization, and because maybe the cause that you are working for might not be as crucial. Like, for example, in my case, the intangibility of play and creativity, as compared to maybe like world hunger, like the budget might not be as much given to play, for example, and that will also equal to maybe us not being able to have more programs to actually pay part-timers, for example. So we need to be lean, and we need to prioritize what programs do we actually want to do, and in turn also not expand and grow as quickly as we want to be. So I think that's one of the considerations lah. Like it will be a challenge, but it is something where we learn along the way, and we you also realize that you're also not alone in this. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I guess it's about scalability and also about
Yes.
accessibility to different opportunities, or how you may see certain opportunities come by and slowly prep yourself for it. Yeah, I hope I got it correctly, Hafiza.
Yeah, I guess also to understand that it's also like gaining the experience first, but at the same time understanding that there are certain things that we need to prioritize, and like what Alif mentioned also, like, where are you in your life right now, and is this something that you would let go of, for example, like in terms of money. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe Alif at this point. Yeah. How? I mean, since you are running an organization as in like this, yeah. How do you monetize your passion? Yeah.
That is a loaded question. I think first you're mentioning something about like the feeling of I don't know if it's insecurity or the fear of jumping into it because of what we understand social sector to be and whether we can monetize it. To that, I think one of my direct answers would be to talk to people who are already in the sector, people who are already doing the job, or people who are already experienced in the field. Because I think as much as a job description can explain, or the HR person can explain, nothing beats the lived experience of somebody who is doing the job day in, day out. And to talk to them and to understand what exactly is the job and whether it's something that resonates with you before you even jump into it. Because sometimes after talking to the person, you realize, oh, this is not for me. Or after internship, you realize that, okay, I am not passionate enough to be able to do this for a long period of time. On the topic of monetizing, I think it's a balance of how do you make whatever your passion is or whatever skill set that you're offering to be relevant to the sectors that you are engaging with. So how do you feed into the needs of your audience? You know, it's doing research and understanding, okay, if I'm dealing with sector ABC, how can what I offer be translated into the different sector? So finding relevance and allowing them to see the value in your work. So there is that. So in the short term is how do you make it relevant and valuable to your different audiences, but at the same time also, because I work in a space that is intersection and transdisciplinary, I cannot expect everybody else or every other sector to want to work at the same space as me.
Okay.
So it's also holding on to the idea that in the long term is hoping that everybody else will see the value of intersectional work and then meeting us where we are. So I think maybe like if I were to sum up is you work with people where they are rather than where you expect them to be. So if I see them in a certain space, then how can I bring value to them? And then along the way, hoping and waiting for them to meet us where we are as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alif. Maybe my next question will be for Mick specifically. So, I mean, one thing is definitely for all of our audience here, please do check out the websites of our panelists here today, the organizational websites, and see deeper the kind of work that they do. I mean, tied to that, I really love the spicy and fiery content on the Continentalists page as well. So just kind of on the idea of monetizing our passion and also looking at innovations within the social services sector, maybe Mick, you could just run us through what are data-driven stories and how are you seeking to challenge the conventional ideas of our social services sector? Yeah.
Oh, tough question. What are data-driven stories? I'll start with that. So basically, you take data, but we have a very broad and open definition of what's data. And we're not just like going to data.gov.sg and then downloading the data set. I think one of the kind of defining things that Continentalist does is to be just very creative about what counts as data. And so, for example, with that chili story, you see that we collected recipes and use that as data. In other stories we've done, we've collected like newspaper clippings, or we've collected, temple fortune boards, right? To look at people's horoscopes and stuff. So we basically take that data and through visualization and storytelling techniques, we hope to make it more kind of accessible to the public. And the broader mission here is to connect research to the public. So for example, data that is held by NGOs and think tanks, for example, that's very valuable, but it's just not otherwise getting communicated. We hope to be the ones to translate that and elevate the quality of information and I guess discourse in and about Asia. So that's data-driven stories. Now, in terms of, I think you mentioned was it innovation in the social sector?
So I mean, again, like coming back to the idea of like what the social services sector appears in all of our minds, and you've kind of very successfully incorporated a lot of data and tech into this kind of sector. So I just wanted to know like your own views on how have you been challenging it, and also like trying to go against the grain of what it looks like, or was it deliberate as well? Yeah.
See, I mean, again, I'm not sure.
Yep.
Like Gaia, I didn't actually know I was in the social sector until I joined this panel, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm in the social sector. But maybe I can just start like more humbly and just talk about like the organizations we've interfaced with. So that might be groups of activists, volunteers, NGOs of various sizes, some more international, some more regional, some more local. And I guess I think I could say that there seems to me to be a broadening awareness that communication strategies need to move into the modern age for a lot of work to be done effectively. That might be a social media presence, but for those, like I guess with that data information, then this kind of media might be more helpful for them. In terms of like even more broadly, data and innovation, I don't have direct experience in it, but from what I understand, I do think probably there will be a move towards using more data-driven methods in general, or at least a pressure to move in that direction. And that is not necessarily always a good thing. I think whenever we're in the data world, we always have to be very careful about what is being measured, what's considered important enough to be measured, and how do you measure it. So yeah, something being more data-driven could be a good thing or could be a bad thing, but that's probably where the space is moving towards. I guess touching on monetization of passion, I guess I kind of broke it down into like a personal level, like for the individual, and at a more, I guess, systemic level. I think on the personal level, one has to be as one of them mentioned, like have a very honest conversation with yourself about your needs as well as your bandwidth, right? So just because you can maybe afford a lesser paying job and then do a part-time job, it's like, do you have the bandwidth, right? And also life is unexpected. You might get hit by sudden caregiving responsibilities, for example, right? So you should be honest with yourself about that. And then again, I guess I go back to deconstructing passion. If it means something like interests and curiosities, be aware that that actually changes a lot, like much more than people tend to think. And often you don't know what you're interested in until you experience it. Like I didn't know about data storytelling until like a year ago. So, and I guess this is my personal view, but I think in the capitalist system that we operate in, not all passions can be rewarded and not all passions have a market fit. And that's okay, it's not on you, but it's just that then it may not be particularly wise to try and monetize that particular passion and find something else to monetize. For example, yeah, and if you, I guess, look at the numbers for different kinds of fields, occupations, you'll see that the numbers are very skewed in terms of like maybe the number of vacancies as well as the input and output contribution ratio. I think it's quite robustly proven that in many fields, for example, it's the top 10% of workers in that field that produce like maybe 50% of the contributions. So I guess all I wanted to say for that is just that distributions are very uneven. And yeah, that just really depends on the market, so to speak, that you are looking at, and to look at that very like honestly and realistically. I think that's a personal. For the systemic level, I think
Thank you so
I find
much.
it very hard.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Mick. I completely agree with you. I see your points as well. And just kind of tying into our question that just came in from Tammy. I think Tammy is reading my questions list as well, because I was wondering about the exact same question earlier, and just tying it there. For all of you panelists, what are some things in your lives or within your journey in the social services sector that you struggle with even today? And what are your own self-care tips in this regard? Or at least how have you been able to tackle, or how are you dealing with this particular issue? Yeah. Like, have you ever felt burnt out or so? I think Hafiza mentioned that way earlier at the beginning of our panel as well. So maybe that's one thing at all. But I guess any struggle that you are dealing with even today, and have you been able to like successfully resolve it? If yes, what were your own self-care tips? If not, how are you dealing with? Yeah. Gayatri, come. Okay, Hafiza. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So, on top of your personal struggles, for example, insecurities, especially when you first start off work, right? And another point would also be like, as you are also doing it day to day, you are also sowing your seeds, but then it'll take time for things to grow, right? But then you can't see sometimes you can't see the growth that is happening, and sometimes you feel like, is what I'm doing actually doing any good in the long run? And sometimes you start to doubt yourself as well, like I've been doing this for very long, like I don't see the progress, and sometimes like, how do I even measure the progress? And then there's a lot of questions, and sometimes you are not alone in this as well. You are also wondering with your colleagues, like, yeah, we've been doing this for very long, and but you know that there is good results. It's just that, how do I prove that there is good results, for example? And that can be quite frustrating, because then like with these results, we can actually like get more funding, we can have more work, and so on and so forth. So I guess that's why like there is like a certain cycle as well, of where you need to also take care of each other, also know how to like set boundaries as well, know that work ends, and then you can also spend time with your family, recharge, do things outside of your outside of your job scopes as well. So maybe volunteer in other places, step outside, and again, like build build more experiences outside of your circles as well. So that's where you gain better perspective of where you are, rather than just coming back and being in that bubble as well, because it can get very consuming as well, because you really love what you do, right? So you, for example, for me, like I would be in the education bubble, and I think like, oh, how else can I help children? But then someone from another sector can actually teach me something that I have not been saying. Yeah.
Thank you
I
very
totally
much.
love
Yes, good.
I totally love and I totally I get what you're saying, Hafiza. I think a lot of what you said, I totally have there's an affinity there because I think both of us work in similar sectors, yeah, and with similar customers. Yeah, so I think for me, like actually, I would like to tie it back to the monetizing your passion, that part. I think what I feel like I'm promoting my boss right now. I think what Shaina did, where how her journey started with this whole like student care, sorry, was actually she wanted to see a change in how the approach for kids has actually been happening, like towards their social emotional learning, how they are shaped into the humans that they all they would like to be, you know, and all these small things, all these small changes, the awareness that we can build in them, and how, you know, like it's just sparking a conversation, you know, like these things, if we just keep working on it, you know, it will build up eventually. And I think China's whole seed of like, I want to see whatever the change that I want to see, I'm going to start working on it, and how I'm going to start working on it is to plant it in a student care, you know. And I think one thing she has done consistently, done her best to bring through her whatever beliefs and like whatever programs that we do, with the hopes that the kids will be using them, these tools that we provide them with all the programs that we do, they will use them along the way as they go through life. They are not going to stay with us. We cannot tell the lifespan for how long they will be with us, you know. But what we know that is that when they come through our doors, hopefully when they leave, they have a toolbox, you know, that they can go to when they are facing issues in their life. And that has been something that China has worked on consistently with the student care. And that core is just a program, but how she monetized it was the student care itself, the student care line. So and I think what has been amazing is that she has collected the teachers around her who are like individuals who have similar beliefs, mindsets. Our approaches might be different, but our beliefs, our mindsets, our disciplines, the way we approach kids essentially is just very similar. So that's something that I have to say that China has done, has actually created a support system for us somehow. We find different ways to cope throughout the day. I can't say it has been easy, because many times I was just talking to the panel before we even started, that how when COVID hit us, it hit us really hard, because we being in the student care sector, we had to find a way to interact with the kids. And we were, a lot of times the challenges was that we were seeing the interaction levels drop compared to in person, and how it was to like overcome that challenge and just be like, okay, have to understand that, yes, because it's the kids looking at the screen, their attention span is definitely not going to be the same as when they are looking at you face to face, and having to live with these things. And I think the one thing that we have consistently, that China has actually built in us, is that we talk to one another about these things. And even if we don't talk, we will ask one another, is there anything that you can do for yourself, to help you get through the day, or maybe like for after the day, is there anything you can do for yourself, to just healthily regulate yourself, because we are handling many lives, and there are many narratives, and there's a various, all of them are individuals and all of them are unique, and when you have to talk about having to handle all of their different, the things that's going on with them, sometimes it can really take a toll on you. It can, at the end of the day, sometimes we ourselves, like, we are not burnt out, but exhaustion sets in, to the point where you just sit and you stare at one another and you're just like, what just happened today? That kind of thing. And so it's been good to see that we can rely on one another, and also when we step out of the office, we know, we will check in. Also, we will ask one another, like, private conversations. How are you doing? Have you been able to cope? It hasn't been easy. I'll still say it hasn't been easy. We are fighting our battles daily. And I think what China has recently started to advocate is choosing your battles. It has been a very smart advice. Choose your battles. And I'm like, okay, I'm working on it. Yeah, so that's us. That's us.
Yeah, maybe Mick or Alif on this, and then we'll wrap up with our final question.
Yeah, regarding the burnout question, I think what I love about what Hafiza and Gayatri said was the idea of setting boundaries, and also because I think in the social sector space, a lot of us have a tendency to just want to give to the people who we're interacting with, whether the kids or like whichever group you're working with. But it's also realizing that in doing the work, you are intersecting with a lot of people, and you're influencing a lot of people. So I do agree setting boundaries, and also to start recognizing own body or yourself, like what are the indicators that you are approaching exhaustion or burnout. And once you realize that in yourself, and then that is your cue, like, okay, I'm heading towards there. Somebody shared with me once that I thought, and I love this analogy, is this idea of when you're in an airplane, like when they drop the oxygen mask, they'll always say, put the mask on for yourself first before you help the others around you. And I think that has stuck with me throughout, because it's the idea of sometimes you kind of have to save yourself first, or you have to prioritize yourself in order to be the best version of yourself to assist or to help other people. So in regards to the burnout question, for me, it's two things. One is a combination of self-care and self-work. So self-care is whether it's taking a day break or shopping or ice cream, those various kinds of self-care, but also self-work in looking into yourself and dealing with all the things, because I think that also affects how you show up for your kids or you show up for your clients. So a combination of those two before to address the burnout.
Yeah. Mick, would you want to go?
No, I'll actually agree with what I said.
No
Yeah.
worries. Okay, thank you for that. Then maybe in the interest of time, our final question for our panel would be, what are some of your key takeaways that you would want our audience to take away from your particular sharing of today? And also Brendan's question of what are your own aspirations and vision for the social services sector? And after that, once we end our panel, I want everyone to switch on your cameras and we'll have a group photo. Yes. So yeah, just open to everyone. And maybe short lah, just about one or 2 minutes on key takeaways and your own aspirations for the social services sector. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, we also realize that we are not alone. We might be doing separate things like Mick, Gaia, and even Alif. But also we are glad that we are in a same working space as well. And I think in that sense, we always keep an open mind, keep an open heart as well. And when we meet new people, we understand more narratives, and it adds more into our bank of experiences. And yeah, I think it's the takeaway is even coming in for a talk like this, you're also opening up to more ideas, finding out stories that you might not have heard of, or maybe you have, but it's also a good reminder. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe Mick or Gayatri next, then Alif.
For me, would be patient.
Okay.
Be patient, yeah, is my key takeaway. And for my hopes for the social service sector in the future, I would just be, I really don't know, like off my head, the only thing I can think of is that I hope to see more individuals and who come in with I think I like what if I'm not wrong, I think Ali said come in with questions rather than answers. Yeah, because I think the questions are important, because then that's when we can spot what are the, maybe there's a loophole somewhere or something, bridging a gap, you never know. So yeah, I look forward to that.
Yeah, Alif or Mick.
Okay, I think this is a learning, maybe more so for myself, and like as I'm listening to everybody and their journeys, I think am realizing that uncertainty and discomfort is part of the journey, like hearing everybody's experiences. And also looking back, I realized that it's times of discomfort that great learnings come for myself. So I don't know if this is going to be comforting for anybody going through your own journey, but if you're feeling uncomfortable, great, because that is probably where you need to be, and that's where learning lies. I think with regards to the social sector space, I genuinely believe that there is space for everybody to be in a social sector space, or even like we don't need to call it a social sector space, just in the work that we do. And I think my hope will be to expand what we understand it to be, and to be able to bring in the skill sets that maybe we've learned from different places, or different backgrounds that we have. That maybe we think of as unconventional to the social sector space. Yeah, I think that would be an exciting possibility.
Mick?
I find it very hard to add more to the panelists' excellent answers, so I think I'll largely stick to that. I guess maybe only that I think when we look at passion, and if you can identify values and convictions in that you always have the power to manifest that actually in whatever walk of life you're in. So it doesn't actually, not that your job doesn't matter, but to some degree, it actually doesn't constrain your ability to live out your values, whatever your form of paid employment or label, that you can manifest it in other ways. So to maybe reduce the stakes that are placed on that. In terms of what I hope to change, I think, if I go on, I think it'll be far too long now. It's more structural. I think capitalism is a bit broken. So I need to start elsewhere.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists for your wonderful views. I think it's been really 1.5 hours of pure insights, beauty, depth, raw, candid stories and experiences. And our audience has really benefited immensely from each and every one of your sharings. I think moving forward, they are definitely much more empowered in making an informed choice if they want to explore a career, or even just volunteering or connecting with the social services sector. So I think, again, to repeat that message, it doesn't have to be a significant overhaul. It can just be small, minute steps that go a long way in helping you connect with their humanity. And unfortunately, we only have this much time today. If not, I would have asked Hafiza about connecting with our inner creativity as well, as part of her work in play. But ultimately, maybe my own 2 cents on the matter is, don't forget that human connection that we have with each other. Our struggles may kind of keep us divided from each other, and we are often facing this journey of being alone. But don't forget that in the grander scheme of things, we are what we have. aka we are the human connection that binds each and every one of us. And it's really important for us to not only work and carve a living for ourselves based on our own skills, experiences, knowledge, and so, but really to just give back to our community, connect back, and also gain that rejuvenation in the process, which we often kind of forget in our, as Mick says, like capitalistic struggle of our daily existence. So yeah, on that note, I really hope everyone has been immensely benefited. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed yourselves as well. Please keep connected with Common Ground, keep connected with our panelists and me, if you would like to. And it's really been my honor and privilege to be able to moderate this session. So on that note, once again, thank you very much for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. Thank you to our panelists who have taken out time from your schedule to join and enlighten us today. I'm Raj, signing off.